Thank you very much, Dave.
No worries, Raf. I
So,
got your back.
Parashat Vayetzei. I want to talk about the story between Yaakov and Rachel, maybe a new insight, a new perspective to look at what happened between Yaakov and Rachel. It's one of the most developed relationships between a husband and a wife that we have in the Torah. And mostly we're going to go over a few psukim and we'll try to find out what was the character of Rachel, and maybe this character of Rachel has been changed throughout the Parsha from the beginning to the end. And maybe we will find out that this is also the reason why Yaakov Avinu was waiting till he left when Yosef was born. So let's start with reading the psukim a little bit and with a few questions. And while reading the psukim, we will point out a few differences, important differences between Rachel and maybe Rivka. So the beginning is the story, as we all know, Yaakov Avinu flees from Esav, and the Torah gives us a very long description of what he encountered when he went to Haran. So the Torah says, Vayisai Yaakov Raglav, Yaakov resumed his journey, and then he sees something. Vayar v'ine be'er basadeh, before his eyes was a well in the open. Ve'ine sham shlosha edrei tzon rovetzim alea, 3 flocks of sheep were lying there beside it, for the flocks were watered from that well. The stone on the mouth of the well was large. Then the Torah continues, when all the flocks were gathered there, the stone would be rolled from the mouth of the well, and the sheep watered. Then the stone would be put back in its place on the mouth of the well. It's a little bit weird that the Torah decides to tell us all this with such a detailed information. What's so important? So if you will look in the commentators during the generations, they took it as a vision that Yaakov saw, and this vision, some says it was a prophecy, and they give a lot of interpretations regarding the future of the Jewish people, because it's a little bit weird why we have all those details. I'm not going to answer the question of the details, but I will answer the question regarding the conversation that Yaakov Avinu has with those shepherds. So we have 3 psukim in which Yaakov is telling them something, and they answer. And the Torah uses the words Vayomer lahem 3 times, which gives us the feeling that the environment was not so friendly. Yaakov Avinu was trying to develop a conversation, and those people, they were not interested in a conversation. So it starts with Vayomer lahem Yaakov. Yaakov said to them, Achai me'ayin atem, my friends, where are you from? And they said, we are from Haran. And the conversation ends. There's no continuity to the conversation. Yaakov Avinu was trying to open a conversation. No conversation. So he says, he tries again. Vayomer lahem. He said to them, Haida'atem et Lavan ben Nachor. Do you know Lavan, the son of Nachor? Tell me, do you think it's a yes or no question? When Yaakov Avinu, a stranger, comes to the city and he asks, do you know this person? The answer is yes. Maybe you want to know where he lives, what's his situation. Nothing. They're saying, yes, we do. Yes, we do. And that's it. So Yaakov tries again. Vayomer lahem hashalom lo. He asks, hashalom lo, is he well? And they answered, yes, he's. And then they're trying to get rid of him. And there is his daughter Rachel coming with the flock. The Tosfos, from the era of the Rishonim, are saying here that they told him, Lama ata marbe dvarim alenu kol kach lish'ol alav. Why are you bothering us with all those questions? Hine Rachel bito ba'ai matzon. Here is Rachel. Shehi dabranit kamocha. She is, if you want someone to speak to, if you want to chat with someone, to schmooze with someone, maybe Rachel will be your address, not us. En anu rotzim ledaber kol kach. We don't want to speak with you so much. So this is the feeling we get from those psukim. Why it's important that the Torah tells us this conversation. So I think that this is the first place where the Torah gives us an overlook to understand what's the environment in which Rachel grows up. Rivka told Yitzchak that she doesn't want Yaakov to marry the daughters of Canaan. And if he will, lama li chaim, a very harsh term. Why should I be living if he's going to marry one of those people here around us? So maybe Yaakov has a little bit of an expectation. Who are those people in Haran? Probably they're better than the people in Canaan. But when he gets there, this conversation symbolizes that those people are not at all special. Those people are not at all welcoming. Those people are not at all kind. And Yaakov Avinu encounters this environment, this society. So what about Rachel? Rachel grew up in this place. What's so special about her? Who is she? What is her character? But first, the Torah tells us that Yaakov tried to, in Hebrew, we will say that he was giving them musar. He was seeing those people with their flocks not doing anything. So he said, it is still broad daylight. Early to round up the animals, water the flock, and take them to pasture. He, the honest person, as later on the Torah will tell us, when he said to Lavan, I was here 20 years, I have spent in your service. Your ox and she-goats never miscarried, nor did I feast on rams from your flock. That which was torn by beast I never brought to you. I myself made good to loss. You exacted it of me, whether snatched by day or snatched by night. He has a very straight behavior, Wadam Yashar, and he sees the lack of those people and their behavior, and he tries to understand what's the situation. So what is their answer? Vayomru, but they said we cannot continue to take the flocks to pasture. Why? Until all the flocks are rounded up, then the stone is rolled off the mouth of the well and we water the sheep. Is this a good answer? Mimai nafshach, as we say. If it's not yet the time to roll the stone and to water the flocks, then why are you here? Probably there is a certain time that everybody gathered around the well and water the flocks. So anyhow, you are here too early to do it, right? You're waiting, so you're lazy, so your behavior is not moral. It's not a good answer. So Yaakov Avinu sees again from those people, he sees again how is their moral commitment to work, okay, and to honesty. Doesn't seem like a good society to grow up in. This is the way I see those psukim. The Torah wants to tell us that Yaakov found out that those people are not so different than the people in Canaan. They're not so welcoming, and also they're not so moral and honest. And then we have the encounter with Rachel. And the Torah says, Odenu medaber imam, while he was still speaking with them, Rachel ba'a, Rachel came. And then there is a pasuk, and the Torah uses 3 times the same term. And when Yaakov saw Rachel, the daughter of his uncle Lavan, and the flock of his uncle Lavan, now in the translation, they're saying uncle, but in Hebrew, achi imo, that's the term. So here the term comes 3 times. He sees Rachel, which is the daughter of Lavan, the brother of his mother, and the flock of his uncle Lavan, the brother of his mother. Vayigash Yaakov vayagel et ha'even, then he rolls the stone of the mouth of the well, and water the flock of his uncle Lavan, the brother of his mother. Why 3 times? The Torah needs to tell us that Lavan is the brother of his mother. We know that. We know that from the very beginning. We know it from last week's Parsha, right? Maybe it's to explain Yaakov Avinu respond right away when he sees Rachel. What is he doing? Vayishak Yaakov leRachel, vayisa et kolo vayevk. Yaakov kissed Rachel and broke into tears. We can say that it's a very extreme emotion, right? He kisses Rachel and he broke into tears. Why? Why? Probably the Torah is trying to mention, maybe to emphasize, that Yaakov Avinu saw in Rachel the image of his mother, of Rivka. This is why the Torah says, the brother of his mother, the brother of his mother. He saw, when he saw Rachel, he saw his mom. He saw Rivka. The image, the outside appearance of Rachel reminded him of Rivka, his mother. And in this point, he kisses her and he's crying. According to Chazal, he was crying because Rachel would not eventually be buried with him. But maybe the simple meaning of the pasuk is that he was crying because how many years he was away from home. Chazal are telling us that after he fled from his house, from his parents' house, he stayed 14 years in the yeshiva of Ever and he learned. And then he came at the age of 77, 14 years away from home, and who knows how many years still in front of him to stay away from home. And he sees Rachel as an image of his mom, and he cries. When the Torah mentions, the Torah tells us about Rachel, the Torah says, "Rachel hayta yefat toar v'yifat mareh." Rachel was shapely and beautiful. There is a very similar term regarding Rivka. When Eliezer Eved Avraham comes to the well, the maiden was very beautiful. Tovat mareh. So there is Tovat mareh, here is Yefat mareh. Maybe he sees his mother's image in Rachel, and he falls in love right away. Vayehav Yaakov et Rachel, and he wants to marry Rachel. But is Rachel in the same, let's say, spiritual level, the same characteristic as Rivka? We know that the appearance of Rachel reminded him of Rivka. But what about Rachel herself? What about her personality? What about her characteristics? So first, there is a difference here between the story of Eliezer and Rivka and the story of Rachel. Rachel goes right away to tell her father. At the moment, Vayaged Yaakov leRachel ki achi avia hu, וכי בן רבקה הוא, ותרוץ ותגד לאביה. She ran and told her father. So Chazal are saying, her father, why not her mother? Because her mother passed away. So now that we know that Rachel grew up in a certain environment, in a certain society, the Torah tells us that also she didn't have a mother, only a father. This father will, eventually we will know about him that he is not such an honest person, and a villain maybe will be a good word for that. So it's not only that the place is problematic, the family is problematic, the house in which Rachel grew up is a problematic house. Still, Yaakov loves Rachel and he wants to marry Rachel. Now, it's very clear here that there is no conversation between Yaakov and Rachel. Not only that there is no conversation, we remember, we have in the back of our minds, behind this story, we know that another story happened in the well. It was Eliezer and Rivka. What happened there? A whole situation. Rivka was welcoming. Rivka was, with a lot of kindness, did everything that she did. She watered the camels of Eliezer. She had a whole conversation with him. Here, there's no conversation at all. And not only that Rachel is not acting in the same kindness that Rivka acted in the past, it's the opposite. Yaakov is the one that watered the flock of his uncle Lavan. He is the one who does the kindness, not Rachel, not Rachel. So it seems very clear that the situation is different. Rachel, she's very different from Rivka. But Yaakov Avinu sees in her the image of his mother. So he falls in love. And he wants to marry her. This marriage, I can say it in a modern way, this marriage, we can say that when you have high expectations from a marriage, which doesn't have such a realistic base, okay? In reality, right away the crisis comes. The crisis comes right away. So first of all, the first crisis, Lavan is cheating him. Who is part of this? Probably Rachel. So Chazal saw it in a positive way, that Rachel didn't want Leah to be shy, etc. But if you look at it as it is, Rachel and Leah, they were part of it. They were part of what their father did to Yaakov Avinu, right? And then the crisis with Rachel comes. When the Torah says that Leah has children and Rachel doesn't have children, what happens? What's Rachel's reaction? So the Torah says, when Rachel saw that she had born Jacob no children, she became envious of her sister. Envy, it's a good thing or a bad thing, negative or positive? So Rashi brings Chazal, who right away says that this envy is a good envy. She was envious of her because of her good deeds, thinking unless she were more righteous than I am, she would not have been privileged to bear children. So it's a good envy. But according to Chazal, in many places, he just brought one example, Chazal, in many midrashim, they see this envy of Rachel as a negative thing. As a negative thing, I'm not going to read the midrash. We have many midrashim in which we find that Chazal criticize and see this envy of Rachel towards Leah as a negative thing. And not only that, here we have a conversation between Yaakov and Rachel. If I'm not mistaken, the first conversation between Yaakov and Rachel in our week's Parsha, it's a fight. It's a quarrel. They don't get along, if we can say so. And the Torah says that when Rachel had envy towards Leah, she came to Yaakov. Rachel said to Yaakov, Hava li banim, give me children, or I shall die. Between me and you, it's not such a kind sentence, pleasant sentence. Hava li banim, give me children, or I shall die. What does Yaakov Avinu respond? Vayicharaf Yaakov berachel. Yaakov was incensed at Rachel, angry. And he said, can I take the place of God, who has denied you fruit of the womb? Now here we have different aspects, different views in Chazal. Rashi says that Yaakov Avinu said the following: you say that I should do as my father did, but I am not circumstanced as my father was. My father had no children at all. I, however, have children. So from you he has withheld children, and not from me. Mimech mana, lo mimeni. It's not my problem, it's your problem. Come on. This is the way a husband should answer his wife in a situation when she is in a struggle, when she is in a psychological crisis. That's the way to answer. That's the way to respond. And Chazal are criticizing Yaakov Avinu. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'chikach onim et hameukot. Is this the way to answer those who are oppressed? Chayecha. Yaakov received the punishment. Upon your life, your sons will stand before her son. As we all remember the story. The tribes came in front of Yosef. This was sort of a punishment for Yaakov Avinu for the way he treated Rachel, for the way he answered Rachel in this quarrel that they had, in this little fight that they had. But what about Rachel? Rachel in this situation, what she was supposed to do? Maybe if we will understand what Yaakov Avinu thought that she has to do, instead of coming to him and demand children from him. Give me children. Yaakov Avinu, he knows his mother. And what his mother did in a troubled situation, she prayed. In the beginning of last week's Parsha, in the beginning of the Parsha of last week's Parsha, the Torah says that Yitzchak prayed, but according to Chazal, Yitzchak and Rivka prayed. But later on, we find it in the Psukim. When she had some troubles in the pregnancy, Vatomer imken lama ze anochi. Anochi, the same word that Rachel uses. Ve'im ayin meta anochi. Here Rivka says, lama ze anochi. What was Rivka's action right away? Vatelech lidrosh et Hashem. She went to inquire Hashem. Inquire Hashem can be, the simple meaning of inquiring Hashem is to pray. According to Chazal, she went to Shem and Ever to receive a prophecy. But the simple meaning of the Psukim, to inquire God, is to pray. Yaakov Avinu knows what a person should do when he has a problem. When you have a problem, you pray. And maybe Yaakov is telling Rachel, Kadosh Baruch Hu is waiting for you to pray. It's not about me. I have children. It's not that he's saying, it's your problem, too bad. No. He's trying to tell her, look, I don't have this problem because Kadosh Baruch Hu gives you a problem for you to inquire him, for you to create a relationship with him, for you to speak to him, to establish a connection with him. Who did it? Leah. When we read the Psukim again and again, when Leah has children, in each one, Reuven, ki ra'a Hashem be'oni. She talks about her relationship with God. Ki ra'a Hashem be'oni, ki shama Hashem ki snua anochi. Apa'am odeh et Hashem. God is very present in Leah's life. What about Rachel? What about Rachel? Leah, she prays. Leah, she thanks. God is very present in Leah's life, not in Rachel's life. It's very, very strong from the Psukim here. And Yaakov Avinu says to Rachel, it's for you to pray, not for me. It's not that he's saying it's not my problem. It's your problem, too bad. He's saying, Kadosh Baruch Hu wants you to pray. He doesn't want me to pray. I don't have any problem. I'm okay. And if HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you this opportunity, it's for you to pray, not for me. He was waiting for Rachel to understand what's the right reaction, what's the right response. Ramban says something similar, but not exactly what I'm trying to say. Ramban says, Yaakov Avinu did it, leyaser ota uleachlima. He wanted to make her, I don't know how to say it in a good English. However, she, says Ramban, she got it. When she saw that Yaakov Avinu, she cannot rely on his davening, on his prayer, she started praying on her own, for herself. And this is why, says Ramban, later on the Torah will say, Vayishma elea Elohim. I think it's still too early. I think she prayed a little bit later, and I will prove it. But then Ramban says something very important. Ramban says, we cannot bear to think that Yaakov Avinu didn't pray for Rachel. Doesn't make sense. He did. He did. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't answer him. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not answer him, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not answer his request, he told Rachel, it's out of my hands. It's for you to do it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is waiting you to do it. It's not me. Even though he has a justification to what he said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, according to Chazal, told him, this is not a way to talk to someone in a psychological crisis, to someone in a problem. This is not a way. You have a message here. It's an important message, but this is not a way to say the message. There is a better way to say it. And because of the way he said it, Kadosh Baruch Hu give him sort of a punishment according to Chazal. But let's go back to Rachel. What's the next move? After Yaakov Avinu says, it's your problem, and according to our interpretation, you need to pray on your own, she does the following. Vatomer, Ine amati bilha bo elea. Here is my maid Bilha, consort with her, that she may bear on my knees, and that through her I too may have children. Who did it before? Sarah. Sarah did it with Abraham. Let's see the differences between the way that Rachel present this idea to Yaakov and the way Sarah present the same idea to Abraham. Let's see what's missing. Two things, I think. Tomer Sarai el Avram, and Sarai said to Avram, look, Hashem has kept me from bearing. One difference. The first, Hashem has kept me from bearing. Rachel doesn't say Hashem. She doesn't say anything about God yet. That's a very, very, how do you say, bolet. It's a very noticeable difference. That's the way Rachel says. If Sarah has a title, Hashem has kept me from bearing. Consort with my maid, perhaps I shall have a son through her. Here we have two other differences in Hebrew. In the English translation, it's not so clear as it is in the Hebrew. Hine na atzarani Hashem miledet bo na el shifchati. The word na in Hebrew is please. Please consort with my maid. Ulai, perhaps, ibane mimena. Rachel, she doesn't say please and she doesn't say perhaps. She says she is actually commending him to do it. Bo eleha. Veteled al birkai. It's not a perhaps. Veteled al birkai veibane gam anochi. Through her I too may have children, not perhaps. What am I trying to say? In Leah's life, in Leah's reactions, in all the psukim, when you read the Parsha, you will see it, Hashem is very present. In Rachel's conversation with Yaakov, Hashem is not present at all. At all. Even when she says the same idea as Sarah, she says it without the presence of God, and without the language that Sarah has. Please, perhaps, it's a different way. It's a different way to present an idea. Then, only then, after Bilha has two kids, and I'm opening brackets, that this idea with giving the husband the maid, we can see two approaches in Chazal for that. One approach is that it's a psychological, maybe even physiological thing. Okay, and that when the maid will get pregnant, it will influence the husband, maybe physiologically, and the wife maybe psychologically. And maybe psychologically also has a physiologically influence. This is one way to look at it. This is the way that the Sforno explains. Or maybe another way is, if I'm doing something out of kindness, it's like a zchut. When I do something like that, when I'm willing to do such a thing, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will see how desperate I am, and he will help me. And he will help me. This is what Rashi says regarding Sarah. Bizchut she'achnis tzarati letoch beti. Because I'm willing to do such an extreme act, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will see my trouble, will see my condition, and will answer my prayers. In Sarah's case, maybe it worked. But in this case, we don't see that it works right away. Right? In between, we have some other kids of Leah with Zilpah, and okay, but then the Torah says, Vayizkor Elohim et Rachel. Vayishma elea Elohim. Here the Torah says, God heeded her and opened her womb. Meaning, as Ramban said before, she started praying. And from that moment and on, she doesn't stop praying. When she receives the first son, first of all, she says, Asaf Elohim et cherpati. God has taken away my disgrace. God is present. Then she calls him Yosef. Why? A prayer for the future. Leah, when she named her children, it was thanking. She thanked. Here, Rachel is doing both. She is thanking and she is asking. Yosef Hashem li ben acher. Now she understands it's not Yaakov Avinu's prayer. It's not that if I will bring my maid to my husband, something will change physically or psychologically. It's me. I need to stand in front of God and to pray. Yosef Hashem li ben acher. And then, and this is amazing, right away, after we see in the first time that Rachel prays, that Rachel brings HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be present in her life, Vayhi ka'asher yalda Rachel et Yosef, at that moment, Yaakov decides to leave. Vayomer Yaakov el Lavan, shalecheni ve'elecha el mekomi u'lartzi. After Rachel had born Yosef, Yaakov said to Lavan, give me leave to go back to my own homeland. Why now? Why he was waiting so long? Chazal criticized him for preventing Kibud Avaim 22 years. Why? Why he was waiting? When we take everything that we said from the beginning, Yaakov Avinu was waiting for Rachel to become the wife that he saw in the beginning, the image of his mom. But the image, it's not enough. Yaakov Avinu was waiting to see how Rachel becomes in the inside, how she becomes in the same personality, how she changes. And at the moment that Rachel changes, now says Yaakov Avinu, this is the way, this is the time. This is the time to come, to go back home. There is another paragraph in the Parsha that we can bring into this idea. It's the paragraph in which Reuven goes and finds Dudaim Basadeh, those flowers. And when he comes with those flowers, Rachel says to him, to Leah, Tnina li miduda ebnech, give me some of those flowers. According to Chazal, those flowers was sort of maybe a cure, sort of a medicine. Medicine, how do you say trufa? Sort of a cure, maybe a sgula, maybe something real that works, maybe a sgula that works. Again, Rachel sees hope in something physical, in something in reality. If I'm gonna use those flowers, I'm gonna have children. According to Chazal, this is why she was asking it from Leah. And when Leah responded the way she responded, Rachel told her, okay, you will have Yaakov tonight. Okay, she was probably, it was part of the story that she was looking for a solution from those dudaim, from those flowers. So this is another paragraph in which we can find that Rachel still was influenced by environment, society, her father, education, all those things that Yaakov Avinu saw in the beginning. So Yaakov Avinu sees in the beginning the place Rachel grew up in, the people, society, and all those things are not at all the things he expected. But when he sees Rachel, he sees his mother. He falls in love. Mamash. But this is not enough. As we saw, the first conversation between them was a crisis, because Yaakov Avinu was expecting something else. And he was trying, maybe, according to Ramban, to try her that she will understand. And slowly she understands. Slowly she get the message and she changes. Now, it's logical. It's logical that Rachel she was in a need to change. She grew up in Lavan's house with those people in Haran. Takes time. Takes time to change. Takes time to find this path of faith, which Yaakov Avinu was waiting for. And when this process completed, when this mission accomplished, then Yaakov Avinu decided to leave. According to Chazal, and Rashi brings it, reason why it's right after Rachel, and when Rachel had born Yosef, Rashi says that it's after the birth of him who was to become Esav's adversary. As it is said, and the house of Yaakov shall be a fire, and the house of Yosef a flame, and the house of Esav for stubble. Fire, Yaakov, that has no flame, which is Yosef, has no effect at a distance. Therefore, when Yosef was born, Yaakov put his trust in the Kodesh Baruch Hu and wished to return home. But according to what we are saying, those 20 years was 20 years of Yaakov Avinu waiting patiently to see Rachel change, to see how she changes and how she absorbs the way of faith, the path of Abraham and Yitzchak. This is why she was waiting. And from that moment and on, as we all know, Rachel, she is the symbol of praying, the symbol of the mother who prays for the children. Maybe it's not in vain. Maybe when you are far away and you grew up in such a society with certain values, or maybe without values, and you find your own way to bring God's presence to your life, to understand the importance of praying through suffering, through troubles. This is why, especially Rachel, she is the praying mother for us, the crying mother for us. She, and especially she, understands the importance and how much we, the Jewish nation, are based on koach hatfilah, the power of prayer, the power of bringing God into our simple or not simple troubles and problems. This is the specialty of Rachel, and it was a process. As we see in this week's Parsha, it was a process. And Yaakov Avinu had patience. He had patience to this process. He slipped when he answered her not in a nice way, but he was trying to make her to get on her own to this understanding. It depends on me. It depends on my relationship with God and how much I will make God present in my life. May we do the same, especially in those hard times. Praying, we should pray. Rabbi Nachman says that if you see a lack in the world, it's either because no one prays, no one prayed for it, or people didn't pray enough.